Okay, there's 2 or 3 things I want to do in our 10-minute video session, thanks to my photographer. I really appreciate your expertise here. The first one is I want to talk about the semester project. And I want to really, I know we talked about it last time, I know most of what you need to know is in writing on the instruction sheet. But I wanted to focus on a couple of things that maybe are not so obvious and are a little bit subjective, and because of that, a little bit difficult to grasp. Okay, number one, I wanted to really emphasize the importance in our semester project of playing a role. Okay, this is, maybe this does not sound as though it is challenging, and maybe does not sound as though it kind of leads in a certain direction, but I know from my experience teaching this a couple of times that it most certainly is. Okay, what do I mean by playing a role? The whole idea of the semester project is that you're preparing a conference, going to a foreign place, talking to experts. Okay, now the thing that I really want to stress here is this means, you know, I can't stress this enough. This is not a typical or traditional college paper. You're not writing for your professor, okay? You're writing, number one, for a group of peers, and you're playing the role of an expert in mythology, number one. Number two, it is very important, as it would be if you were actually attending a conference like this, that you're very clear about how and what you want to project to your audience. Now, I know that it is very easy to kind of revert to the role of a college student writing for a teacher and a grade. And I want you all to immediately work very hard at erasing that from your mind. Think in terms of going to Paris and talking to a lot of people who are basically on your side, okay, and are looking to commune and get close to you about this topic, and really eager in, once again, continuing the idea of a conference of peers, that you probably know a lot of them, you know, from whatever, you know, from your professional contact. So as you're doing your paper, that's pretty much what, you know, how I want you to think about it, okay? And emphasizing the part about who do you want to project yourself as, like someone who is humble, someone who is arrogant, someone who is proficient, someone who has experienced things. One of the things that I want you to do in your presentation, both the written form and when you actually give it, and I know we have to talk a little bit more about that, is to tell a little bit about yourself. Now, the thing that I say, and this is why I want to use the video here and have this sort of on record for you to look at, is you don't necessarily have to tell the truth, okay, at any level. At a conference, tell the truth, number one, and number two, in this assignment, you can pose as anything. It doesn't make any difference. Another thing, this is what a lot of my students in the last class did, is they took a little bit like, they had been to Germany with the military, and they blew that up to be like, you know, secret missions and stuff like that. And they did like background information on what they did, and yeah, it wasn't true, basically. They were just developing a personality. And I think this will be very, very interesting for you as you get into it. It's a little weird at first, okay? That's number one. Number two is you want to get started on this. And I know that launching this is a little bit difficult. I highly advise that, hey, I highly advise that you go to the templates and you basically spend 10 minutes, you know, 5, 10, 15 minutes, reading through quickly all of them. Because you'll see each of them have a series of questions. The first of them are really simple. I mean, you know, you could answer the questions in the first couple of templates in 5 minutes, you know, at the most. You do it 30 seconds, very simply. They get harder and harder. None of them is difficult by any means, but some of them have more questions. The questions get more complex as you get into your paper and we progress in the course. But having some inclination of where you're headed with the topics is good. It will help you a lot, and we'll talk more about that later. Okay, so that's topic choice. The other thing that we're going to do today is we're going to work on creation myths, okay? And I'm doing this, as I started to say last time, for a really specific reason, and that is, I think the creation myths are like the keys to all of mythology. Okay, what do I mean by that? And question mark. And what I mean by that is the creation myths are keys to all of mythology because you can see really clearly this very odd double structure of myths. And that is, on the one hand, that there's incredible structural similarity. And if you're not really paying too much attention, you just, it's really easy to say, oh, they all have creation myths. Okay, they're all the same. Okay, that's the easy response. However, the more you dig into them and the more you read them, the more you realize they're all completely different. Okay, and this is what makes them so engaging, because not only do you see that after you kind of get used to them, you see that they all have, they all kind of start at the same place, they all have the same step, they all have the same steps. However, they're all fundamentally different. And that's why I chose the 3 or 4, whatever it is, that we're doing. And in order to really realize how different they are, you got to read them really carefully, and you have to juxtapose them. And that's what we're going to be doing in a group exercise later on. That's 11 minutes?
6 and 6:50.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so I have a little more time. Let me think. I have to pause. I lost my train of thought. Okay, so that's why, as a class, this evening, we're going to work on those. I just have to count them, don't I? The Greek creation myths, the Judeo-Christian one, and the Hindu. So we have 3, but Judeo-Christian, is in a way 2, in a way not 2. Talk about that down the road. And once again, the conclusion that I want us to come to is how different they are, okay, which leads us to a very important methodological consideration that you're all going to need really quickly when you read your paper, when you start writing your papers, and that has to do with the versions of the myths. And I think this is, as amateur myth readers, let me say it like this, we're all kind of conditioned to think that there's a standard version. And what I want to teach you, one of the main things that I want to teach you is there's no standard version of any myth. And we don't, the thing that we want to extract from our minds is thinking like the Disney version, or the common version, the common sense version is the right one, because the way this works is that once you start reading the popular in the sense of widely distributed versions of the myth, and then the more scholarly ones, you see that there's an enormous difference there. And in order to write your papers, you've got to work a little bit on that, and you've got to be attentive to do that. Because if you just do, I'll just take the popular version. That is the well-known version that most people are familiar with. You realize that does not work very well for our project, because we need to use the content of the myths and your understanding of the myths as lenses or filters to look at a contemporary issue. And you can't do this with the kind of dead versions, okay? And you've got to probe a little bit. Now, all that said, I know that might sound a little bit difficult, but it's in fact really easy. But you have to keep this in mind as you look at the first versions that you see, and then look around a little more. I'll help you if you need you need some guidance here, and you'll immediately see the differences. And in short order, you'll see how important those differences are to get to your to where you need to be in your paper. How are we doing there? 10?
Nope, 9:50.
Okay, great. So I'm fast. I usually say 11 and it's 14. Okay, let me sort of, this actually gives us time here. I'll do this quickly, however. Remember, once again, that your semester project has two parts. It has the myth part, and you're using your analysis of a certain myth on a political or social issue. The point, I want to make two really quick points and I'll conclude. First of all, how you understand the myth. What parts of the myth, what aspects of the myth. So this is another one of these genealogical trees, in this case of Greek mythology. And I would guess maybe the hardest thing for you to do is to like say, okay, you're going to do Chronos, you're going to set, your paper's going to have to do with time, and then how close is it going to be to these other parts? How much of the other family are you going to need? And that's completely up to you. And you'll see that there's no proper way to do it. It depends on your real feel for the myth. Okay, so that's the one thing. The other thing that I need to say, and this is good that this gets recorded here, is that when we're talking about, the political and social issue, I want that to be precise as to place and time. I highly suggest that you use metropolitan Washington, okay? And the reason for that is this allows you to take the 3 points. You're going to study about the myth and focus them on something precise, so you don't have to do you don't have to study a political issue for all of time and for the whole world. That is impossible. That will torture you as term paper writers or as presentation writers, keeping in mind that the paper itself is maximum of 7 pages, as in 3 pages and 3 pages. I did this on purpose, so you wouldn't work to death and you wouldn't have to read 30 or 40 books. You should really be able to do this project in, I would say, let's just say 5 hours, 6, 7 hours, not too much longer than that anyway. Okay, if you're really on top of this and you have a good subject, you should really be able to do it in 2 hours. Okay, it's meant to be easy in a way. Okay, thank you very much. Photographic team, the lighting.